All right. Welcome back from our long break. We have lots to cover, so we'll jump right back into it. How was the church in November, Mark?
Great times. Phil was there also, and I believe, right, Phil? Was that the one we're
Not in
talking about?
November. I was the one in December.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about the last event, which we had an open event. Phil was at. The November event was really fun also. Um, a good showing. We had about 10 people and good times. It was good learning games. Um, Paul put on I'm sorry, I'm I'm blanking on the November event completely. I'm mixing it up with the January event.
Well, that's
Uh,
good though. We need a little mix up, keep us on our
right,
toes. It's
right.
fine.
Yeah,
I remember you guys did a bunch of different games. Um,
yeah. I know we did that it's just totally slipping my mind. It's totally merging with January's event. I'm sorry.
I
You
assume
weren't
you
there,
did.
right, Phil?
No, I wasn't. You probably did more bolt action though, I assume.
Yeah, we did bolt action. I'm thinking that Paul did sharp practice at both events.
Okay.
That's why I'm mixing it up because he did them at both events. Um, so yeah, the sharp practice is a great game. It's from Two Fat Lardies. There's always like a scenario that's very role play, but entwined with the game, so it's fun. So he's been teaching a few new members that game, and then
Oh
of
yeah,
course, I'm sorry.
November was the AWI event, so you guys played
Oh,
different AWI games. Just looking it up.
so I am mixing up. So I'm talking about the January event. That's all January event that I just talked about. The AWI event was really cool. Got to get the British out for me, and the Americans got to loan out some troops. Some new people came out that I've never met. They seem really motivated and started painting up some armies. So we need to have another AWI event as soon as possible.
and for our listeners, AWI is the American War of Independence, which you guys know the British don't call it that.
No,
They call it the North American Rebellion.
I guess that makes sense.
That's fine with me.
It's all
Yeah,
about perspective. Yeah, so
definitely.
we played Muskets and Tomahawks and Rebels and Patriots at that event. Um, Had to get off the cobwebs for Muskets and Tomahawks because I haven't played in a long time. So some people had to bear with me while I was going over the rules, but it turned out to be a fun game in the end.
It's awesome. Yeah, I was trying to look it up too on Facebook. But I'm not having any luck. Phil, you looked it up and it was all
Yeah,
AWI, so we're good
yeah.
on that. And then I think you did a battle report for the January event, right?
Yeah, I just did one. That's where I'm mixed up. It was just in the top of my mind here. That's where Paul, member Paul,
Yeah, not
um,
me.
other Paul, uh, did the. He's like a Two Fat Lardies guy. He's trying to promote those games, so he's doing the sharp practice training games. Like I said, it was like I don't remember the overall scenario, but he had to. I think the one person had to trade for a spy, a woman that was captured by the Spanish guerrillas, and the British had to trade, but it turned out that she was a French spy. And the end, I think the British were murdered by the Spanish guerrillas. So
That
because
I hate it when that happens.
I know they're really French agents.
Ugh.
So it's stuff like that. It's really deep, entwined scenarios. And then I'll let Phil talk about his Japanese bolt action game.
Yeah, so I played a bolt action game. I had Japanese. My opponent had U.S. Marines, and he had brought. We had planned this, so he had brought basically a lot of jungle terrain. So it was a very nice looking table for bolt action. And Mark, you had brought some new scenarios, I believe, that we used for this event. So I think you got these from was it the Australian Bolt Action League or something like that? Or
It's called Bolt Action Alliance. I found it through Tabletop CP, the guys at YouTube there. They have it in their files. I found the link, and they every year they put out a Bolt Action Alliance puts out a packet of scenarios, like 4 or 5. I find them down. They're free to download, I believe. I'm not sure. if they need a donation or not. I found them free, so if I messed up and need to donate somewhere, let me know. I will do that.
Yeah, so it was a great scenario. There were three objectives down the center of the board, basically evenly spaced out from my side of the table to my opponent's side of the table, and you just had to control two out of the three to win. And basically, I just dumped so many Japanese soldiers on the center objective that my opponent was not able to dig me out. I just charged all my Japanese infantry forward, and we each had our own objective on our side of the table. But the middle one was hotly contested. But I had a troop. I had lots of regular troops, and yeah, I just had too many troops for it to go through.
Yeah, usually that's the case with the Japanese mass army. Like,
Yeah.
and then I played one of those scenarios also where they did a supply drop and you had to get 4 objectives dropped randomly, and it just turned out that they were just put in the 4 corners of the board, and it was real fun. I in the end lost because they rushed there was U.S. paratroopers versus Waffen SS, and I just didn't have enough guys to hold the middle objective, and he was able to rush it on the very last turn. So really fun games.
And then you did Sword and Flame in the early January too, right?
Yeah, yeah. A member Steven, he has all the stuff. He always invites us out to play that game. It's an older game from the 70s. I think it's probably one of the granddaddies of them all, probably. It's really cool. You use 20-sided dice for each person shooting. So you're rolling like 15 to 20-sided dice. And it's really a cool scenario. You have hidden native troops in the mountains, and you have to go out and find them, and then all of a sudden they pop out because he pre-writes down where they're hidden, and so it's a really fun game. We had to take an objective. I was British and I played the Sudanese Mahdist forces. I lost because I just couldn't keep my forces, and I had to keep a camel train going with me to keep my supplies, and he was just able to kill the camels, and bad times.
Wow, that's cool. I just checked out Bolt Action Alliance, and they
Mhm.
really do have a lot of good scenarios. I know I ran a tournament once with their scenarios.
Yes,
People
you
liked
did.
them a lot, and
Mhm.
now they have some new ones. Jump to action, shifting objectives, window of opportunity, the thin red line, and pincer movement. They've
That's what
always
we play.
had, yeah, they always had supply drop, but maybe they
Yeah.
updated it or something.
I think I played what the second one you listed there. I know that I think that Phil played the line one.
I I think it was actually pincer
Oh, okay. He did pinch and move it.
because even though it was three objectives, my opponent came in from on his side of the map from the two corners, and I started on the center, so he was kind of pincering me that way. It didn't really affect the scenario too much, but it just prevented us from just shooting each other turn one as we were kind of further apart. Because yeah, I was in the center of the map and he was on the edges of the map.
Yeah, I like the scenarios a lot. They're really fun. They're a good variation from the book. So it's good times.
I
I
I,
try not.
I did read they tried to make them balanced. They do a lot of play testing. There's no preparatory bombardments or anything like that. They hate those because they think that unbalances the
Yeah,
game,
it
and it
does.
just makes you sit turn one and just try and roll off your pins and rally. So
Yeah,
um,
my favorite to play if you is Nuts. I think it's an older version. It's real
Yes.
fun. Nuts. Yeah.
Well, if you go to their Facebook page, you can download the files. I don't know if we want to show them online right now.
Yeah. I think that's what I did. I just found them and downloaded them.
Yeah, and there's more than they say. There's pincer movement and shifting objectives, supply drop, which does look different. The thin
Yeah.
red line, they've got really interesting deployment zones that they do. Make,
Yeah.
mix it up.
They do
And
a
then,
battle packet every year, so it's like 5 or 6 scenarios every year.
right. Then they have extract the assets. I'm not familiar with that. And pennies from heaven and rolling
I
thunder.
think
There's a bunch in the
I did
mission.
pennies from heaven. I think that sounds familiar. I think I did pennies from heaven.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I did not know that all these new ones had come out.
All right.
So
Well,
I'm glad I showed up to the podcast.
yes, we'll have to try these out.
Yes, we definitely will. I'm unfortunately doing robot season, so I won't be available till April. But once
Mhm.
I hit April, I'm going to start. I might actually go down to your neck of the woods, Phil, and just learn that cool game that we want to know all of us want to know how you did at LBO.
Oh,
Yes.
BattleTech.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so I could talk about that. So I spent 3 or 4 days in the middle of January at the Las Vegas Open. It's not surprisingly that's in Las Vegas. Um, it's run by Frontline Gaming, and it's billed as the largest Warhammer tournament in the world. They have one giant ballroom basically, and they had over 400 tables of 40K players, so over 800 people playing in their 40K main tournament. They also had an Age of Sigmar tournament, and they had some narrative events as well. But there was also there was also a bunch of non-GW games. They're trying to branch out these days. So there were like 50 people playing BattleTech and Alpha Strike. I mean, there's also things like Bolt Action. There was a Bolt Action tournament. They had some Blood Red Skies as well there. There was also a Team Yankee and a Flames of War tournament, and I recognized some of the players there from the local Los Angeles area. They have all the Star Wars games, Marvel Crisis Protocol. They have a fairly big dealers room. The dealers room was actually a lot bigger this year. They had Army Painter was there, AK Interactive was there, Monument Hobby. So all the big paint manufacturers were out there. Because something that they do there, aside from just running tournaments, is there's a lot of classes that you could pay for learning how to paint certain things. So people give classes on how to paint faces, how to do certain kinds of lighting and stuff like that. I didn't take any of those classes. I was just playing BattleTech all weekend. So I was in the Alpha Strike tournament on Friday, and we ended up with 26 players, and I finished sixth. So I ended up going 3-2, but I got a lot of objectives points. So even though it was a 3-2, I still ended up finishing sixth. So I was fairly happy with that.
Yeah.
I'd wanted to finish in the top 8. That was my goal. There was a little prize that they give to people who were in the top 8. So that's what I was shooting for. So I was glad I made it.
Congrats. Good job.
So that was 5 games of BattleTech Alpha Strike on Friday. On Saturday, there was a BattleTech tournament / Alpha Strike tournament where you start off with a 1 mech each in BattleTech, and then you, over the course of the games, you add more and more mechs until you start playing Alpha Strike when you have a lot of mechs. So that was 4 games on Saturday, and it continued over on Sunday with 2 more games. And then I played 2 more games with just a friend of mine who I met there. I know a lot of people who travel from different parts of the world to go there, so it's nice seeing people that I know just from online, seeing them in person. So it's a great convention. I love going there. I mean, it's at the Rio Hotel. It's not the nicest hotel, but it's off the strip, so it's fairly cheap. So if any of the games I mentioned sound interesting, you should consider going out, and you're a real tournament player, because all they have are tournaments. They do not have like demos or anything, or just open play or anything like that. Really, you're there to play in tournaments and scheduled events like that.
You said you played 5 games on the first day.
Yep.
So when does that start and when does it end and
So each game is timed to be at an hour and 20 minutes. We started around supposed to start at 9. We started around 10. We were done around 7 or 7:30 with a lunch break and stuff like that. So it's a full day, and Saturday and Sunday were full days as well. And halfway during Sunday, I was feeling fairly brain dead after playing so many games in 3 days. Yeah, it's a lot of games.
Okay.
So how was
So
the bolt action turnout? Did you get a chance to notice that, or was that
So the Bolt Action was in a different room. I didn't actually see it.
okay?
I did see the Flames of War and Team Yankee. They were in the same hall, and they probably had 40 people, I would say, for their events as well. So I forget which one was first, but they had a lot of nice tables out there. I'm
And
not sure who.
Chris was out there playing Song of Fire and Ice.
oh yeah,
Is that a
Oh,
song?
yeah,
Is
that's
that a
right.
game?
that was there too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So um, I know that, I mean, probably they'll start releasing information on next year's, probably around September or August or something like that. And I mean, you got to pay. A 3-day badge for the convention is like $50, and then the events are like $30 or $40 each. And And of course, you need a room at the Rio. But luckily, since a lot of us live in LA, we could just drive there, which is what I did. And it's an fairly easy drive to make.
Mm-hmm.
Until the
Nice.
high-speed rail gets in.
Yeah, but 2028, yes.
Yeah.
I
I'm not going to make any bets on 2028.
well, they said they want it in by the Olympics, so that seems to be a hard cutoff. So we'll see if they actually make that.
Yeah, is this the same high-speed rail company that was supposed to put one in from San Francisco to LA or
I
something?
don't know.
Not sure about that.
That
Yeah, I remember voting that in. Yeah, no.
don't have it yet, do we? No.
Yeah, we're getting a little political here. But what about the Warmahordes? Was there any Warmahordes there?
I believe there was. I didn't see it.
So
What
it's a
is this?
rumor.
What is this?
I know it was on the schedule. I remember looking over the schedule and it was there. I don't know how many players were there. I mean, there are three big ballrooms, one of which is just 40K, and then the other games are scattered throughout the other two main ballrooms. And I think they have a couple of small side rooms too. I think actually Bolt Action was in one of the smaller side rooms this year. I mean, I think the attendance was over 3,000 people, I heard, for all 3 days, and it's a gigantic convention. It's a lot bigger than the other ones in the whole California area for sure. So, and it's all miniatures games. There's no board games or anything like that. It's just all miniatures games.
Wow.
And
So I heard through my grapevine that ITC was bought by GW.
I heard that they're taking it over. I don't know if they bought it, but they are certainly involved in the ITC now. And for those of you that don't know, ITC is the tournament kind of software slash rules that they use for their 40K tournaments, right? And for other tournaments. We don't use that for BattleTech. We have our own custom homebrew system that we've been using. But yeah, it's a big deal. I know it's where all the player rankings are tracked and stuff like that. So I don't know how you run a tournament with 800 players in it and figure out all the pairings and who plays who and who the eventual winner is. Because with that many players, you're going to have a bunch of undefeated players. So
Well, yeah,
I'm sure
Best
they've got
Coast
to win.
pairing, right?
Best Coast pair. Yeah, I think they
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. And that's just runs the entire event for them. They just, it's computer driven. But I'm interested to see what happens now that ITC has been eaten up by GW, what that's going to do to that event. I don't know if Frontline Gaming, I knew they were part of that. I don't know how big their involvement was with ITC, if it's even,
I think
Frontline as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Frontline just used it. I mean, Frontline was actually the big thing at LVO was that they were showing off their own new game, which happened to go on Kickstarter the same day as LVO. So they were showing that off and stuff like that. I didn't see that. I have no idea what that is. GW also made a big presentation at LVO that's online about future 40K and other Warhammer products and stuff like that. So it's a big deal to the 40K and Warhammer community, that LVO.
Well, I'll keep an eye on it and see what is happening now that ITC is under the umbrella of GW. And I also noticed that the stock was up at 150, right before LVO, and now it's down to 125 a share. So something's
LVO
up.
didn't go. LVO went great. I don't know. That didn't ruin it. So
No, I'm just saying the acquisition of ITC, maybe that investors are feeling that's not as a strong move as some people. Well, you know how they are. They
They're
run
probably
the
waiting to see what
metrics on it.
they want to see what their plan is, probably.
Yeah, I know when companies buy other companies, that's sometimes what happens to their stock. People are
Yeah.
like, well,
They want to hear what's going to be the outlook here.
yeah, most companies start to gobble up companies and they start to become less effective and their profits start to wane.
I mean, GW also had a big announcement for their old world stuff, right? So I don't know
Right.
how well received that was by the public or anything like that.
And
Yeah,
what is this old world? I keep hearing of it. What is old world?
So the original games that GW had was Fantasy Battles. And then they killed Fantasy Battles and brought out Age of Sigmar. So Fantasy Battles just stopped existing. So that's why Kings of War and some of these other game rule sets got traction, because there was this void where people wanted to play block armies with orcs and men and angels and that sort of thing. But there was no rule set by GW. They just dropped the line and had all new models. You know, and then all of a sudden, this surprise move, they're like, "Oh, it's back."
So
So
they own Lord of the Rings, correct?
yeah, they have right now they rent the IP.
So do they make that game with all the miniatures for that?
Yes, they still do. They used to have it
So
in their stores.
is that why they don't do the fantasy? Because it's sort of the similar thing, or
Well, we thought that was the case, but now obviously they're making a whole new direction here where they're bringing back the fantasy battles. I've heard nothing but positive things on the internet about it. There's been no hate. I read the rules briefly, and they are fantastic. It really captures back the flavor and cleans up the system.
when
Um,
when would you that we're talking about 40K? Is that what we're talking about?
well, the
No.
company that makes 40K, what we're talking about is just like Lord of the Rings, a fantasy battle game. But Lord of the Rings is just more like 40K. You just have, your pieces
Right.
and there's whereas fantasy battles, which is now called Old World, you blocked up your units, sort of Napoleonic style. You had
Okay.
ranks, and then
Uh-huh.
you had some that were skirmishers, and
Right.
you had individual siege engines, individual chariots, but you could rank up your chariots with some armies, and they had a whole series of factions. Now, one of the things that some people are sad about, but I don't hear a lot of hate, is vampire counts are gone,
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
or at least they're not here for in this edition right now.
Uh-huh.
They opened it up with Tomb Kings and Bretonnians, and I think they did that because Bretonnians never got any love, from they were the last. They were sort of to be the next faction to get some love.
Right.
So they released a Bretonnian set and then a Tomb King set. Although Tomb Kings had gotten updated fairly close to the end of Fantasy Battles. Is that your remembrance too, Phil?
I never actually played the game. I've just know it at a high level.
Yeah, so that's
Huh.
that's an interesting change. I know our group, the ones at the church play, especially Dan, he plays the really small little 15 millimeter. Um,
Right.
and I think that's King's Or. Is that what he does? Or
I think it's
It,
no?
called that.
yeah, it is. He used to
Okay.
play a lot of fantasy, but he switched to a smaller size.
I think
Which
they're
is
even.
really smart. He just plays on his kitchen table.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is actually a real. I just not going to invest
So
in whole new armies.
in my brain, when I was a kid, when like Warhammer came out in the 70s or 80s.
80s, yeah.
Okay, and so when I first saw it, I thought it was like dwarves and I don't know, sort of more like Dungeons and Dragons armies. And then it turned in my brain turned into like all these mega mech guys with like buzz saws. I mean I don't play the game at all, obviously. I don't mean to offend anyone. So um when was the evolution there, like between Warhammer and 40K?
So that's two. You're confusing two different games.
Yeah.
So I
Right,
mean,
of course. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't know which one came first, but there was
Uh-huh.
fantasy and then there was 40K, and they've both been around since the 80s, I believe.
Uh-huh.
Well, my recollection was fantasy was first.
Okay.
So they had a fantasy line and they were producing that. And then Jarvis created 40K. And then that was more late 80s, late 80s. Um, and then, so the two lines kind of exploded.
Right.
And there was a lot of interest. They became dominant. They just, and then I guess the Bank of Scotland bought them,
Okay.
and now manages them. That's their board of directors is pulling out those strings. But they're doing very, very well. Of course, the big news is, of course, Henry Cavill is going to do a Amazon series with the IP that's been endorsed and backed by GW. And so we're all waiting for that. Originally, I guess an intern leaked it, and so that's why we've been waiting so long. But now they're actually in production.
Now, is he a player?
Pre-production.
Does he play or
Yes, he does. He plays Custodes.
okay?
So he has already announced publicly that he's going to support the IP, and he's a player, and he is going to keep true to the game. And the rumor is that they've given him tons of creative control, which is why he left Witcher, because they, didn't give him the control. He loves The Witcher just as much, or can't speak to that, but he has said that he loved doing The Witcher and did not like the direction it was going, so he left.
All right.
Yeah, that's a lot, isn't it?
Yes.
So let's get back to our sad little world. What
Okay.
happened? What happened? Halloween was the last day.
Oh.
Games at my place was open, and there's been nothing since. No words. Do you have any? Have you heard any rumors about that store opening again?
No, I assume that the store is going to be rented out to somebody else. I keep meaning to check, but I haven't been to Pasadena in a while.
Yeah, I checked. It's gone, and there was a furniture store looking like it was going back again in there. But
Well,
I
it
haven't
must
heard
it's
anything
probably
from
gone.
the previous owners.
I mean, I imagine the rent on that space and stuff is not conducive to a game store, but I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. I wasn't part of the business at all. It looked like it was doing really well.
Yeah,
And
for
I know
sure.
the Flames of War gang is homeless.
Yeah, they don't like
They
Odyssey, then they're not moving over to
They were
Odyssey.
playing. They've been playing a little bit at Odyssey now. I see
they
them
don't,
posting on
yeah, but
Facebook.
they had their terrain at games at my place, and they
Yes.
do not want to put their terrain at
Yeah,
the
I understand.
Odyssey. Yeah.
That's the hard part. That's the hard part. Major Wellington's always trying to figure out. So our idea is to have like a tub for our members to use at
Hmm.
different
Hmm.
spots, but how do we do that? How do we have a lock? That's the whole problem,
Well, the staff at Games at my place was very supportive, and they
Right,
let you lock it up, and
right.
as long as you kept it clean and nice, which the Flames of War guys did really well. So
Yeah, for
they're
sure.
looking for a place. They're thinking maybe Brea. That's looks like an
They should start
expansion.
using what's that crazy tea? I keep calling it crazy teas, but it's not crazy teas. It's we
Geeky
play
teas.
geeky teas. That's what they
Yeah.
should use that place. That was a nice place. It's close to them.
Yeah, it has a TARDIS outside. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. It has little like themed areas all around. You and I played and had a blast
Yeah, there's
there.
plenty of room. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
how many tables they need, but they have at least 5 tables for them,
And
probably. I
I,
would have.
I think you won that day, Mark, right?
Yeah, yeah. I cheated a little, remember,
What?
but we're not
You
gonna
didn't
bring that up.
cheat.
Whoa.
We're not gonna bring
No.
that up. I
He's
brought a
just
tank. I brought a tank when I wasn't supposed to, but it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, that happens,
It-
You
it-
come thinking there's no tanks, and then Mark shows up with a tank.
right? Hey,
Yeah.
my radio worked that day, and
It was a great game. I really like the space.
I like to be able to use all that terrain and yeah, not to brag, but I'm hoping to do next weekend or 2 weekends from no next weekend. We're trying to do a Stalingrad, probably just a pickup game of ruins and Soviet versus German. So I like that. It's fun.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, so there's Geeky Teas, there's Paper Heroes. We've talked
Yeah.
about meeting up there.
Yeah.
You and I also met at Game Ogre.
Yes, I love that place. They're a big Warhammer. If you look online right now, they're a big card game. I don't
Yeah.
know the Locana and other games. So I mean, they're packed to the gills every night with that. So
Yeah, they used to be a bolt action store, but they're not anymore. They just not
um,
enough traction there, but
no,
yeah, they have a good group. But it's pretty far for Phil.
yeah, I imagine.
Yeah, I mostly play either at Paper Heroes or at the place in Torrance, Lost Planet Games. It's a smaller store, but they have a lot of independent games. They just don't carry the big GW Warlord stuff. So that's one of the nice things about that. That's like they're playing a lot of Dystopian Wars is really hot right there right now. That game came back, and there are a lot of people playing that there.
And the staff is really nice there, right?
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
It's a great place to go. They're very friendly.
Yeah, and more than friendly, they're very supportive. They
Yeah,
talkative and they help you out. And I was very impressed with the staff both
yeah,
times I've been there.
yeah. And I believe there's a major Wellington event there later, but we'll get to that when we start talking about future events.
Yes.
So pile of shame. Anyone work chipping away at that?
I've been actually been pretty trying to be pretty productive on that. Got some Romans done because I'm hoping to do a Hail Caesar thing in March. So I've got those done, and then we're doing a Colonials. I think next or 2 weekends from now, a
Okay.
Colonial event. So trying to get some Sudanese natives done real quick. Let's see what happens. Trying to hustle,
What about you,
but
Phil?
I'm
Well, I
always
mean, yeah,
got.
my backlog was in pretty good shape before LVO, but after going to LVO, I had to buy a whole bunch more BattleTech models based on what I saw at LVO, of course, because there were some things that's like, ooh, that model's doing really well. I want one of those. And then the other thing I've been doing is I've been playing a lot more Blood Red Skies lately. Um, we're gonna do it at Lost Planet in a little bit. Might actually bring it to the church in a couple weeks, and I was playing it um, with Paper Hero recently. So I for the holidays I was gifted the Battle of Midway starter box. And so I've painted all the 6 Wildcats, but now I'm working on the 6 Japanese Zeros in there as well, and hope to get those done fairly soon.
I saw the Wildcats. They look good.
Yeah.
Thanks. The
And
Zeros I've been having trouble with. I've already stripped all the paint off of them twice and redone them, so we'll see. Hopefully, third time's the charm.
Why is this?
First, they were too dark because they're white planes or an off-white, and so as soon as I started weathering them, they turned too dark. Then I decided I didn't want to do white. Technically, the planes were a light greenish brown. That did not look good either. So now I'm back to white, and I'm not going to weather them so much. So we'll see how they go.
I have an interesting story. I play Mustangs and Messerschmitts, and I built my first Zero was exactly that same experience. Too white, too dark, too white again, not white enough. And I was just like, oh, I messed it up so bad. So what I did is I just battle damaged the, just chipped the paint and made it look it is the plane everyone wants to play.
Nice.
I have all these, beautifully painted Zeros, both in the Army version and the Navy version. I got matched the colors and everything, and everyone's like, "Can I play that one?" And I'm like, "What?"
Nice.
So
So
it
this
it
is a
could be that
170. It's a 172nd game.
yes, and Blood Red Skies has a 172nd version of their game.
Oh, really?
Yep, and I've
They,
I
always wanted to play it that way.
I have a ton of 172nd planes.
See, our destiny has been sealed.
all right, we'll have
I
to try
have a
that.
ton of. How many do you play with at a time? Like with the 172nds?
Well, I'm, like any board game or a miniatures geek, I have 500 planes.
No, I
So
yes. No, I'm saying what is it? Mustangs and
Mustangs and Messerschmitts is out of print. It's been out of print for eons. You can't find
30
it.
years, yeah.
Yeah.
but how many planes are you playing with in that game?
Well, I have 25 stands. So, and I've played up to with 25 people before
So you
in a
control
gymnasium.
you control one person or you
What?
control.
Yeah, you control one plane.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And Blood Red Skies is more of a squadron style game, so you'll have like 4 to 6 planes, depending upon what they are, of the same type in your squadron that you control per person.
Yeah, and it's got a very simple system where you're advantage, neutral, disadvantaged, which is fine. Mustangs and Messerschmitts, you're actually controlling your footprint, your actual movement, your actual pitch, roll, and yaw, according to the stats of the aircraft. So it's like
Oh,
flying. It's like a
I,
simulation flying a real plane.
I have played it. It is overly complicated. Yes, it's if you if Blood Red Skies is too easy, which I don't think it is. It's more complicated than Wings of War. Then I mean, I don't think they ever want to play Mustangs and Messerschmitts ever again because first of all you need a giant space in order to
Yeah.
play that game.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah,
if
you
you
need
haven't
a
seen
gym.
if you haven't seen the stands, I mean, they're telescoping rods that are like 6 feet tall, and the stand actually has got this little wooden, I don't know, tripod. It's got 3 caster wheels and it's like a 6 inch or 8 inch square or something like that. So you need a lot of room. I mean, the ranges are measured in feet, probably, I believe. It's been a
Yeah,
long time since I played.
it's just for the big boys.
Yes.
Wow. That sounds really fun.
It is actually really fun, and I have all the planes. And I played in the Air Force, and we had area, we just had hangars that we would play in. I'd play with all these, majors and colonels and captains and
Right.
all this stuff, and it was really fun. We had a group of about 12 people that would play, and then I taught it as an elective
Wow.
Because it's so much like flying. So you actually have to learn all the principles of flying to play it. Like, Phil was saying, it's a really complex game. But the
Right.
kids loved it because, I'm
Sure.
an instructor, so I'm going to walk them through it. And we had some really fun things that happened. Like kids would take the course over and over again. So they would be vets. And
Yeah.
then, new kids would be so I would do things like invasion of Russia, and all the vets would be German, and all the new guys would be the Soviets in these radas. And then I'd tell
Okay.
them, hey, you get to ram them. That's part of their tactic. And
Right.
the German vets had never known this because they're not studying history. And so
Right.
they ramming them. They go, hey, you can't do that. And I'm like, yes, they can.
Yes, they
You
can.
didn't tell us that. Well, neither the Russians didn't tell the Germans either.
Right.
And so
Nice.
and they loved it. They were just like, wow, that's
Yeah.
mind blowing. And of
That's
course
awesome.
it was such fun. But I moved schools, so we don't do that anymore. And
Right.
I have all the planes, and someday I'll bring them to the church is a perfect place to play it, by
Yeah,
the
that
way.
would be awesome.
Yeah.
That
We
would
would
be
have
awesome.
such a blast. And
Cool.
a lot of people say it's really complex, but if you're taught it,
Right.
it takes on a different feel. If you have to read the rules, it's just like,
Yeah, right.
but if you just sit down and I go, okay, here's how it works. This is the strategies. This is how you do things. Here's the chart. Everything's on the chart. You don't have to go hunting for anything. And I've got a new chart. We in the Air Force, we perfected the chart. So
Sure.
everything's there. And it's
Nice.
really fun because you have to actually aim your aircraft.
Right.
Yeah. So
Excellent.
you like fire, and then you put down your stick to aim, and you miss, and you're like, "Arr."
Right.
And then the other thing that's so historical about it is you can hit a guy with literally one shot and knock him out.
Right.
Or you
Yeah.
can expend your entire round of ammunition hitting him constantly and do not significant damage, which is
Right.
totally
Yeah.
historical.
For
Yeah,
sure.
Thunderbolts had the massive amounts of armor, and they took bullets after bullet after bullet, and
yeah.
they survived no problem.
Can you see how passionate I am about the game?
Yeah, no,
A
it
little
sounds
bit?
really fun.
So we'll
Really
play.
fun.
We'll definitely play. We have to take a break.
Yes, we
It's
do.
so sad. We'll
It
be
is.
back in a minute.
Okay. Let us know when you're ready.